The Audi A6 is all new for the 2026 model year, with this 9th generation car getting more power, more technology, and more refinement than the last generation. And in this video, I'm going to cover the exterior changes, the interior changes, take it for a drive and see what it's like out on the road, as well as talking about the kind of fuel economy you can expect, and also the pricing and how it compares to the competition these days. And that part is especially important because this thing is hands down the best value in this segment now, so definitely stay tuned for that. So as far as the styling changes here, so size-wise, it's about the same size as the last generation, very similar in sizing, but it's on this new PPC platform, so it's got a little bit of a longer wheelbase, and even compared to the A5, which I just reviewed last year, this is a nice step up. You have a wheelbase that's over an inch longer. The vehicle itself is almost half a foot longer. I mean, it's a nice step up, of course, and this one also is finished in this midnight green metallic, which is a really cool color. In most lights, it looks dark and looks like it's basically black, but in the sun, you can see the green metallic, and it's really a cool color. There's also a firmament blue that's similar, but with blue instead of green, but similar kind of darkness. But they have a lot of really cool colors. There's going to be a brown color, there's going to be reds, there's an Ascari blue you can get on the sport package version, and there's just more colors than you're used to seeing from Audi typically, especially for, you know, their mainline kind of stuff like this. And so really great as far as that goes. Now up front there, you can see you have their new light signatures here. There's 7 different signatures to pick from here on these, and that's something you're going to get on the Premium Plus and Prestige here for the front. And it's really cool. You can have, you know, a variety of different looks for them, and I love that Audi is still like the only one who does this. No one else does it. I think it's brilliant to give that, you know, a little bit of customization to people, and I just think it looks great as a result. We also have that nice bold grille there. Now this one we're looking at here is a regular Prestige with the gray painted stuff. Now you can go for a black optic package, which takes everything to black, and then there's also going to be a Sport Plus package, which basically is kind of like an S6 without the S6 performance hardware, but has a lot of the same look, and actually some notable handling improvements too in that one, which we'll talk about once we're out on the road in this one. But a nice large grille there in the front, looks really, really nice. Coming down to the sides here, we have some 20-inch wheels here on this one. Now on the base one, you go down to 19s, you can go up to 21s on the Sport Plus, and that actually gives you summer tires on that Sport Plus package. Otherwise, you'll have all seasons on the rest of these. And I really like these wheels. They're very classy and kind of timeless Audi looking, just look really nice. Also coming down to the sides here, you have the very sweeping, curvy lines. These days, everything's so boxy and, you know, angular, and I really love this defies that trend and instead just goes for beautiful curved lines that I think are going to age a lot better, honestly, over time. And you have the flush door handles there that look really nice. And then going out to the back here, you have a really nice and again rounded back end, something we're not used to seeing these days in cars. And it just looks really cool. Now here on the Prestige, you're also going to have the OLED lights that have 8 different signatures there in the back. Now that's only on Prestige, and it's a really cool touch. So those lights that look like the actual taillights are actually just like design lights. The real taillights are going to be that little vertical portion there beneath it, and you'll see the light strip that goes across as well. And another nice change here for Audi is that they've added back real exhaust tips. You know, previously they had little finishers, but they weren't actual real exhaust tips. Now we have the return of real exhaust tips on all of these, and a nice rear bumper that gets sportier again with that Sport Plus package, where you'll have the sportier bumpers on all of those. And you know, just from every angle though, I think it looks really nice. Also, it's worth noting, all cars get this intelligently shaded glass roof, and the portion that isn't glass is painted black on all these. So they're all going to have a nice black roof, and so even a base A6 is going to be a very nice look. So for the interior of the 2026 A6, well, it's a very nice place to be, and if you're used to the Audi interiors that we've seen over the past year or so, this is very much the same kind of stuff as far as the new Audi MMI system here with all the screens and a lot of the switchgear and everything. But of course, here for the sedan, there are a few differences here, but it is very similar to even A5, you know, we just covered not too long ago last year. But anyway, the other important thing to note is that this interior is also only for like a few months. These are already on sale, and it only lasts until March. Cars coming in after March will have a mid-model year changeover, and it's going to add in scroller wheels on the steering wheel and new software on the screens, as well as a few new options. Like the base model is going to have the option to get the headrest speaker, which we'll talk more about in a second, and a few other little tweaks like that. So, you know, if you don't love the capacitive touch buttons on the wheel, for example, if you're watching this after March, this won't be a problem. But otherwise, just be mindful of that. You might want to wait until March for those if that's something you prefer. But anyway, getting into the basics here of this vehicle. First off, we're in a Prestige trim, which is, pretty fully loaded. Very nice. Now, this does not have the Sport package. There's a sportier seat, basically the S seats you saw in S5 and SQ5 last year. You can get those here in this. But this here in the Prestige, you still have the headrest speakers, but they're not the sport seats. Now, I think they kind of classify all these as sport seats, but if you're not a sporty person, don't worry. These seats are very comfortable. It's very soft with the perforated leather. It feels very rich. And they have all the usual adjustments, including adjustments for your thigh support and four-way lumbar, which is great. Now, if you go up to that Sport package, once again, then you also have massage to go along with these seats. But the great thing is in all A6s, you have heated and ventilated seats as standard. That's something that no one else gives you as standard, I don't believe. And so it's really great that you have that here in these seats. And yeah, just so comfortable and really well done. They also are, of course, memory too for the seats here. Now, moving on to the steering wheel here. So this is, again, the wheel we've seen in other Audis here in the past year or so. And it's a really nice wheel. Now, these capacitive touch parts on it aren't, everyone's favorite. That was, again, feedback that Audi heard and quickly adapted to, which I love that they're listening to that and making changes quickly. That's huge and kind of rare in the auto industry, so I really applaud them for that. But this wheel is still completely fine. I always thought they had a great 9.3 grip here, nice little 10 and 2 notches, and now it's a heated steering wheel here in Premium Plus and Prestige. Base trim is not heated, but just a few buttons here on it. And what I love is that Audi continues to put the cruise controls on a separate stalk, so that clutters the wheel compared to a lot of others where you have way too many buttons on the wheel and some of these things. I love the way they designed this. Also, if you go for the Sport package, you will get a different steering wheel design. It's the three-spoke design, and it has the S wheel where you have the perforated top and bottom, and a little bit of a sportier, kind of squarish kind of design for those. And yeah, so either way, just a really great wheel. You even have paddle shifters here on the back of this one, even though it's not the Sport wheel. Now, moving on to the first of many screens here. So first off, right in front of you, you have the 11.9-inch driver information display, the gauge cluster here. And this is, again, pretty standard. There's not too much customization, basic little things on the left and the right. You have a more simplified view there if you'd like. And also, if you go into the dynamic mode, then you'll have that little speedometer part turn into tax. But aside from that, there's not a lot of customization. And that is one thing that Audi heard. They heard that people missed having the map in the gauge cluster. And so with this, new software they're going to have here in March, that will be put back in there. And it's also a little bit of a different look for everything. But so that's going to be great to see. But even the way this is, it's still, completely fine. Another nice thing here is that you do have a head-up display here in the Prestige. And it's an 85% larger head-up display. And you can show more information now. So we have, the driver assistance and navigation instructions. You can have audio. Now coming over to the middle of the dashboard, you have this 14.5-inch touchscreen, which is really well done. Now this will also get new software. It keeps the core mechanics, I believe, but it does have some nice improvements. But I think this is really well done, honestly. I love that we have an ever-present row of climate controls there in the bottom, so you don't have to worry about that going into submenus. Like everything you need is in just one press, and I love that. Now you don't have physical controls. That's something other brands are starting to bring back. We'll see what Audi does someday. But in the meantime, I think this works totally fine. Climate control, it's all auto as standard. You get tri-zone climate as standard. You go quad zone here in the Premium Plus and Prestige, but it's just set it and forget it. I don't think it's a big deal, honestly. Heated and cooled seat controls are right there too. And this has wireless Apple CarPlay, wireless Android Auto still, thankfully. You have the nice satellite-based imagery for your maps like Audi is known for, and it always looks so great. And especially here, these new gen versions looks really, really nice too. And you still have satellite radio, which is great. Everything is very easy to navigate through. You have the Audi virtual assistant there you can talk to as well. And that does do more advanced stuff now. So for example, you can tell it to, since this has an air suspension, you can tell it to raise or lower the vehicle, for example. And just speaking that will cause that to happen. So you don't even need to press a button for that anymore if you don't want. And so really a nice display. Now here on the Prestige, you're also going to have this passenger display, which is a 10.9-inch touchscreen. It does basically all the same stuff as the main screen here. Is it bad to move a couple inches to the middle screen? I don't think so, but I think primarily that's going to be used for viewing movies and things. If you don't want to just have an iPad on your lap or something, it is nice that at least it's up a little bit higher there. Might help with motion sickness and things like that for people who do want to watch stuff up front here. And it does have active little shutters so that the driver can't see a movie if you're playing something like that on there. But otherwise, you can help navigate. You can help, change radio stations right there in front of you. Not a must-have for sure, but it is worth noting that aside from the super screen that's an option in the Mercedes, I don't think there's anyone else that really offers the passenger display. So that's certainly, a nice touch for sure. And then moving on here, coming down beneath the screens, you have a wireless phone charger as standard in all of these. That's one of the things. They did a lot more standard equipment here, like the ventilated seats with this new generation. They come really well equipped, even in that base version, and that includes the wireless charging pad, which is a ventilated charging pad that has little rubber strips to hold your phone in place, and it's at an angle which further helps. So this should actually do reliable wireless charging, unlike some other competitors where it's a little iffy. You have 2 USB-C jacks and a power outlet there as well. You also still have a volume knob right here in the traditional Audi spot, which I love. It's very easy for passengers especially to access, and then just the little shifter we have these days, and your 2 cup holders. I also have to say that I don't love all the piano black we still have in the middle here. It just doesn't look very well. The second you start actually living with one of these, it's going to get dusty, fingerprinty, scratched up. I would have loved to see this beautiful wood we have here on the sides. I would have loved to see that here instead. Maybe someday they'll swap in that or something, but this wood is especially nice here in the Prestige. It's got an open pore design. It's a really nice color and it really nicely complements this beige leather here, and you have more of that here on the doors. And even the top of the doors has the stitching here. It's all soft touch and it's all wrapped. It's very premium feeling and very, very nice. Also, while we're looking at the doors here, you'll see this Bang & Olufsen stereo, which I didn't mention yet. So here, as standard in the Premium Plus and Prestige, you're going to get a 16 speaker Bang & Olufsen stereo. Now, if you go for the sportier seats, so these ones with the headrests here, then you're going to have the 20 speaker stereo, because you get 2 in each headrest for the front driver and passenger there. And it's a Bang & Olufsen 3D stereo, so it has that surround sound capability, and especially here with these, total is going to be 810 watts. I think it's like 650 odd watts for the 16 speaker version. But I love these headrest speakers. I've already lived with this for a week in the SQ6 e-tron. I tried it out in the S5 last year as well. They are phenomenal, and I would argue that with these headrest speakers, it's probably the best stereo, in my opinion, under $100,000. You might get close with the Mercedes Burmeister, but I think this is really one of the best sound experiences, hands down, regardless of what segment you're talking about, in under $100,000. It's so good. It's so immersive with the way that it really heavily puts it into your ears there with that headrest. And then also the headrest speaker will also do your navigation instructions just to you, so the rest of the car doesn't have to be bothered with that if the music's being enjoyed by everyone. And also you can put phone calls through just that. So obviously it's still not like you're wearing earbuds, but it's going to isolate that more, and also helps that if you have a phone call going, it's not blasting through the door speakers, broadcasting your phone call to everyone else around you outside. This kind of keeps it a little more private too. So really I highly recommend getting one of these higher trims with those headrest speakers if you can, because it's really fantastic. Now, otherwise, as far as other storage stuff here in the doors, you have a nice large pocket here with a bottle holder. In the middle, you have this nice soft center armrest, and when you open that up, you'll see a pretty shallow area, but you can still fit, sunglasses, things like that. The only other thing I will add is you do have some nice soft padding. Unfortunately, it's far too low for, I think, most people's knees to actually touch and appreciate. Where your knee actually comes in contact is wood. So I love the wood, though. It looks very nice, but I just wish there was something soft here, especially for a luxury vehicle like this. Moving on to the back seat here in the A6. It's very nice as well. It's a really nice, spacious back seat. I'm 5'9", me sitting behind myself. I have several inches of legroom to spare there. Very nice and comfy. Headroom is very good. Also, headroom in general, for even up front, you have 2 extra inches of headroom up front here, thanks to the standard glass roof. And so that really, helps open things up there. And this glass roof, by the way, is very nice because you can have it dimmable on demand. So there's no physical cover, but you can have it basically frosted over at the touch of a button. You can have different patterns if you'd like, have half of it, all of it, whatever. It's totally customizable, and I really love these roofs that Audi's doing these days. But anyway, getting back to the back seat, they're very nice and comfortable, of course. When you look forward, they have their own USB-C jacks there. They have their own air vents, and then you also see their own climate controls, again, here in the high tire trims, and also a fold down center armrest with cup holders built into them. There's also manual sunshades and also pockets in those doors as well, but a really nice comfy back seat. Now moving on to the trunk space here in the A6, it's about the same size as the last generation, and so I mean it's a very good amount of space. You have a nice wide space, a little net there on the one side, a little power outlet on the other side. You have a nice long space though. Beneath the floor there's really, there's stuff under there, but not any kind of actual bin, but you can see there's a few little spaces you could fit a microfiber towel or something maybe small in there. Just a really nice large trunk there. So yeah, the other final little thing I'll mention here is that there's ambient lighting here in this as standard. Previously I think it was an optional thing, but now even like the Bang & Olufsen logo, it's lit up, and at night this is a really cool amount of ambient lighting and really makes a statement. But let's start up and go for a drive. So the A6 here has this key, and I think this is kind of new, this Audi key. It's all plastic now aside from this little metal part at the bottom. Previously this part was like a piano black kind of thing. It was a little more expensive feeling. This key, in my opinion, honestly feels a little cheaper. I'm not sure why they made that switch. I mean, it's still nice to have the metal on the bottom, so it still feels a little nicer than your average plastic key. But anyway, that's the key you get here in these. Of course, it is keyless access, keyless entry, and push button start in all of these. So you just leave the key in your pocket, hit the engine start button, and it starts right up. All right, so setting off here in the A6. So first thing you notice, I think the first thing that I'm noticing here is the really good visibility. You have a nice thin A-pillar, probably one of the thinnest A-pillars in this segment. I love that because it really opens up your forward visibility very, very well. You also have a great view out of the sides, nice large mirrors, and good view out of the back here for a sedan. It's actually really wide open. And of course you have all the driver assistance stuff pretty much as standard. The only thing that's an option is here on the Premium Plus and Prestige, you're going to get the 360 camera and also the Adaptive Cruise Assist, which combines the lane keeping assist steering with the adaptive cruise. But even adaptive cruise is standard, and so is automatic braking, all the other stuff you're coming to expect these days. That's all going to be present here, so it all helps you to navigate this very easily. But the 360 camera is certainly nice. And then one nice thing too with that mid-cycle changeover here for March is that you're going to have the ability now with the 360 camera to spin the car around and see up close if there's a certain angle that you need to have help with there. It's going to help you with that. But otherwise, now we're at some very low speeds here on a little park road, but I just drove for like 5 minutes just to get to the filming spot, and I immediately was impressed with just how quiet it is. And that's one thing they really did focus on very intensely with this generation. They say it's about 30% quieter than the last generation, and they did a lot of different things to improve that. So we have first off, as far as the NVH for the engine and the transmission, there's new engine mounts there for the engine and transmission. There's also even the teeth for the transmission have been cut to be a little smoother so they are less noisy. I didn't hear gear whine in the last generation A6, I don't think, but now that's even quieter. But they also have sealed the door openings even tighter, the window openings. There's more sound deadening material. I mean, just all throughout, this thing is just going to be quieter. Again, I don't think A6s were noisy before, but now it's going to be just even better and significantly better. And I think the impressive thing is that that's paired up with a suspension that, regardless of which one you get, is going to be more comfortable than before too. And you're buying this because you want a comfy cruiser. Now, if you go for that Sport Plus package, you will also have the sportier kind of suspension setup on that one. Those go to a fixed steel spring setup that also lowers it up 0.8 inches, and that's going to be a little bit on the firmer side, I'm sure. Unfortunately, I'm not able to test one of those today here, but just know that there's that option. But the standard suspension you get on a regular A6 is going to be, they said, tuned to be softer than before. And here, this one of the Prestige, we have the air suspension, which can also lower itself the same 0.8 inches as that Sport package. It can also raise itself 0.8 inches. So if you're going through some deeper snow or you need some extra ground clearance, that's certainly appreciated. They didn't say exactly how much ground clearance you have in that max lift mode, but just know that it's going to be kind of nice if you're, again, in a really snowy area or something, to have that little bit of extra ground clearance when you need it. Over bumps and over any kind of uneven terrain, this just soaks it all up very nicely. And also, you're going to get some of those improvements just based on this brand new platform, which is going to give you, just a more refined, a next generation kind of feel compared to the last gen. And I will say it's been a long time since I drove the last gen A6, so this isn't a back-to-back comparison, but I've just noticed that this is just, regardless of what you're comparing it against, it's a very smooth ride. Another thing while we're at low speeds here that you'll notice is the steering. So they've improved the steering greatly here in these. So it's a dynamic rack, so whenever you're at low speeds here, you know, it's going to be a little bit easier as far as maneuvering and all that, but then whenever you're going at some higher speeds, it gets a little bit tighter, and you know, it's going to just be really nice to give you that stability when you want it, but have the ease of use in parking lots and stuff whenever you want that as well. And if you go for the Sport package, you also get removable steering, so that's going to give you even more maneuverability and ease of you know, turning radius being smaller, things like that. But they also did a bunch of other stuff with the hardware for the steering rack. So it's a direct mounted rack, and that gives you more feedback. There's also now a little bit more camber in the tires, so that's going to also give you better road feel and just a little bit better handling there as well. And now we're out on the highway here in the A6, and I have the adaptive cruise assist system on here, and so you know, it's still a hands-on system, but I'm going to let it do, you know, most of the steering here for me. Now we do have a lot of traffic around us, so I'll be closely babysitting this, but Audi's system here in recent years has been very good with, you know, keeping it within the lanes here and being very good about all that. Yeah, it's pretty smooth. We got a little gentle corner there. It handled no problem. Very confident. It's not ping-ponging or anything like that. Pretty nice and quiet out here on the highway too. Now you still hear a little bit of road noise, but not too bad. And they did say they even added foam to all the tires as standard, so that's going to give you you know, even more of a quieter, you know, road demeanor. You hear less of that road noise than you did again in the last generation. But yes, again, all the driver assistance stuff, all the main stuff is standard. So that means blind spot monitoring, rear cross traffic alert, again, that automatic emergency braking, the adaptive cruise control, all of these things are all standard, and that's really great. So, you know, even, you know, most of the competitors still will nickel and dime you for, you know, a lot of the extra safety stuff, but this, even all the advanced stuff like the swerve assist, the active front assist, I mean, all that, you know, cutting edge stuff, even that stuff is standard. So again, it really is just the lane centering and then the 360 camera, that's it. And so I think also the auto park is one of the little thing, but it's still park sensors is standard, all that stuff. It just, again, I'm very relieved to see that, you know, Audi is leading the way, especially among the Europeans, of, you know, just giving you everything as standard instead of, you know, trying to nickel and dime for all these different packages and making it very confusing to order. It's nice and simple, and I love it. And now we're just kind of rolling behind traffic. You know, we got a lot of red lights and stuff here outside the Laguna Beach area of California. And, you know, the one other thing that I was a little iffy on, honestly, with this car, and I was a little nervous about, was the dual clutch transmission. So it's a dual clutch automatic now. It's a 7-speed instead of going for the 8-speed torque converter automatic you had in the last A6. And dual clutches, you know, usually are not as smooth as torque converters. I'm going to need a little more time with this, but I think, you know, my first impression is that this is basically as smooth as a torque converter. Now, Audi and, you know, Volkswagen Group, you know, Porsche, all of them, they do, you know, one of the best dual clutches out there anyway. So they're starting from a very high point here, but I think that this is really nice and smooth. And I'm also happy to report that unlike the A5, whenever I drove that on the launch event last year for that, there was a little bit of a throttle lag, which I think was mostly transmission, where it wasn't giving me instant acceleration like I was requesting. And, you know, I haven't revisited that car to see if that has been fixed, but I will say that I don't detect that at all here in the A6, at least not yet. It's been smooth, it's been responsive every time I put my foot down. It doesn't have to wait for the clutch to engage or, you know, shift around and figure out what it wants to do. You just put your foot down and it goes. And let's do an acceleration. Wow, yeah, it gets up and goes very nicely. So one of the great things here about the A6 is that all of them get the 3-liter turbocharged V6 engine as standard. No turbo 4-cylinder stuff anymore. Everyone gets the V6, and the V6 is actually a more potent version of its old self as well. So we have 362 horsepower, 406 pound-feet of torque. That's 27 more horsepower and 37 more pound-feet of torque than before, and that drops the 0 to 60 time by 0.6 seconds. So it's now just a 4.5 second 0 to 60, which is also very impressive, and is just, yeah, I mean, a huge leap in performance that kind of negates the fact that we don't have an S6 for this generation. It's only the A6 here, but, you know, I think that they understood that, you know, we're almost at S6 0 to 60 times. You know, even though you're losing out on horsepower, you know, you're under, you know, 400 like you were with the S6, it's still plenty of power. I don't think anyone's going to really complain. It puts all that power to the ground here through an all-wheel drive system, and It's yeah, nice and punchy. We had a Porsche 911 that wanted to play along with us there for a second. Yeah, it is really, really well done as far as the power delivery. It puts it all to the ground through a quattro all-wheel drive system. That all-wheel drive system also can disconnect, so we can go to front-wheel drive only to increase efficiency if that's something the car deems is, you know, prudent to do at that point in time. But otherwise, you know, it's going to give you all-wheel drive, and it can do up to a 30% front, 70% rear torque split, they say. And so that's going to be, you know, also kind of nice because it gives you a rear bias in that dynamic mode especially, and that's going to be, you know, really fun, you know, whenever you are on a back road, especially getting that Sport Plus package. It's going to amp up that fun even more, because what that adds is it also adds the Sport rear diff. It does torque vectoring. You also have brake-based torque vectoring in all of these, but you get that actual overdriving torque vectoring there with that rear diff, which again previously was only on the S's and RS's, and now we're getting it here on a regular A for the first time. And so, you know, between that, the rear wheel steer, and the sportier suspension you get there in the Sport Plus pack, that's going to really make it very dynamic. But even without the rear wheel steer and the Sport diff, just having the air suspension that can, you know, lower itself down to that sport level and also be, you know, again, very dynamic whenever you want it to be, but then also be super smooth when you want it to be. I think this air suspension kind of gives you the best of both worlds, because, you know, even though it's fun to have the sport suspension, you're not going to need to be driving this thing at 10/10. This isn't a track car, you know, so I think that this is kind of, in my opinion, the way I would go with one of these, but it's very cool. They do have all the S hardware there on those. Now, I would love to someday see the air suspension combined with rear wheel steer and the rear diff, instead of forcing you into that sports spring, you know, steel spring kind of setup. But even the way this is, you know, it's still very fun. And again, this is plenty dynamic, I'm sure. You know, we're just kind of on the Pacific Coast Highway here, just, you know, going around these gentle corners, you know, not canyon carving or anything here today. But, you know, from everything we're doing here, you know, it's soaking up all the undulations here you have. I mean, here's a nice little part where you get some divots here, and you know, it's handling all of that nice and smoothly here. Of course, the 20-inch wheels will also help you out. You'll again go up to 21s there on that Sport Pack, which will again give you even sharper handling for sure. But this is certainly, you know, kind of a nice happy medium, and you probably will get an even smoother ride with the 19s if you do opt for those. The other cool thing about this air suspension is that it can also lower itself at highway speeds to maximize your efficiency and give you better fuel economy, because, you know, the lower you are, the less drag you have. And there's also active grille shutters, 2 sets of them, by the way. There's a higher grille shutter and a lower grille shutter, and so both of those can work together to you know, give you extra efficiency as well. But really nice that, again, the air suspension can do that for you. Yeah, but I mean, even the standard suspension, again, they set it up to still be really good. I'm sure it's very, very nice as well, if you don't need the adjustability or the sporting nature of the other 2 suspension setups here. And great that they give you all those options. Another nice option here for the driver is all the drive modes. So again, there's the balance mode, there's also the dynamic mode, and then there's the comfort mode, which will, you know, give you an even softer ride. But the really nice thing is that they did greater differentiation, they say, between the different modes. So now you have a sportier sport mode, you have a more relaxed comfort mode, and that balance mode, you know, really does try and hit that sweet spot, which is great. You also can customize even that balance mode and have it so that, you know, if you want to have, you know, the suspension stiffer, but you want to have everything else soft or whatever, you can customize that as well and, you know, make it your own mode. And so it's really great to give you that customization as well, because it doesn't really cost anything to do that, and I love whenever companies offer that. And I may have spoken too soon here on the dual clutch, because I've been doing, you know, more of the stop and go driving, and there's actually one time where it did actually like roughly change into gear, and there's been a couple other times where just I can feel the engagement. So I wish they would have stuck with the torque converter. I'm sure, again, you know, it seems like an A5 has this same transmission. It seems like that's how they want to do the pairings now, is they want to pair everything up with a dual clutch for the most part. But just, you know, for a comfy cruiser like this, again, you're gonna be doing lots of inching up in traffic. I mean, it's not the end of the world, but every once in a while you might just detect a little bit of a roughness with you know, the engagement, or a shift that's, you know, rough or whatever. And that's the only thing that detracts from what is otherwise a buttery smooth ride. If it had a torque converter, I think it'd be like the perfect cruiser. I think that's the only thing that, in my opinion, isn't basically perfect with the way they set this up, but it's still fine. I mean, like, that was just, I just did a stop start, because I have that system enabled here too, and that's very smooth and pretty responsive. Every occasional, once in a while, it'll take a beat to, fully come online there, but usually it's pretty good, and that's very easy if you want to just turn that off and not be bothered with that. You don't have to have it, but I think that's also very well executed here. And, once you're up and rolling, it's fine. It's mostly just like from an actual stop where, oftentimes, or if you kind of catch it off guard where it can be, not ideal. But like for this, it's totally fine. So, take that with a grain of salt. It's not the end of the world. Definitely test drive one of these, see what you think, try and get in some traffic if you can. But that's really the only slight downside I can say for this. Otherwise, everything else about, cruising, sitting in traffic, all that is great. This also, with the adaptive cruise system, goes all the way down to 0, so you can have, adaptive cruise going for, the traffic jams that you encounter. And so really great as far as all that goes. You can just, enjoy the awesome stereo and enjoy, all the, comfort here and luxury of the A6. Now, as far as fuel economy goes for these, they're going to be rated 20 mpg in the city, 29 on the highway, and 23 combined. And, I've just been stuck in some traffic and just cruising around, but I've been averaging about 20 or so. And lastly, let's talk about pricing and how it compares to the competition. So the 2026 A6 starts at $65,395, including destination. The Premium Plus starts at $68,795, and the Prestige starts at $72,695. If you're shopping for an A6 or any vehicle for that matter, you're definitely going to want to head over to mattmoranmotoring.com and go to the new car quotes page. There you'll get access to dealer invoice pricing, as well as getting connected with a local dealer, so you can check out the new A6 for yourself and see what you think about it. So there's going to be a link in the description, as well as one in a pinned comment to take you straight to that site and get you all that info. Now, as far as how those prices compare to the competition, the bottom line is that it absolutely crushes everyone on pricing when you compare comparably equipped cars, making it easily the best value in the segment. But let's go through the competition. First, the Genesis G80 gets the closest, starting at about $60,000 with all-wheel drive, but you only get a 300 horsepower turbo 4-cylinder there. If you want the twin-turbo V6 that matches the A6 on horsepower, a comparable one will run you $80,000. The BMW 5 Series starts about $3,000 less for a rear-wheel drive base model with a turbo 4-cylinder, but that has over 100 less horsepower, and a comparable 540i is $81,000. The Mercedes E-Class is even worse, with the slow rear-wheel drive version starting $2,500 higher than the Audi, and to get an E-Class that matches the A6 Prestige, you'll have to pay an astounding $95,000. The only other competitor is the new Lexus ES, but they're going only hybrid and EV for that new one, and we don't know pricing for it yet, but it has less power for both the hybrid and the electric version than the A6, and the electric version does less range than the electric A6 e-tron. And speaking of that A6 e-tron, that is the last competitor that I'll mention for those that are up for an EV. They oddly already have 2027 pricing out for that one, and it's about $5,000 more than the gas version, but that's still a better value than all the others, but it is still a price premium like usual for EVs right now. So as you can see, the A6 is far and away the winner in this segment from a value standpoint. And overall, the A6 is so well done too that just beyond being a good value, it's a great car, aside from that occasional roughness from the transmission. If you're willing to live with that, you get a great looking and driving car that's comfortable, high-tech, and sporty, all for a great price. Great job, Audi, on a very well done new A6. So anyway, that's all of my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts on the A6 in the comments below. Big thanks to Audi for providing me with this opportunity to review the A6. Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care.